Just let the group come in. Right, we're ready to go, guys. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday morning to you. Delighted that this morning Robbie Neilson's joined us. Overjoyed that, that Robbie's given us some time, especially before a big game tomorrow. Robbie, we're just going to roll straight into it, Robbie. I found this picture because the last time I was with you, you just signed a deal to buy that suit in your office at Tynecastle. Do you remember that, Robbie?
I remember that, mate. I've got my money's worth for it. Oh, tenner it cost me.
Just talk us through your thought process, Robbie.
It's free, Eric. It's free. I'll wear anything, mate. That's a good photo. I like that, mate.
I like that.
Absolutely throw me for the start there.
I took some searching, Robbie, but I remember walking out your office and you had actually, I think you tried the jacket on and I was like, oh, Jesus, he's moving forward with this. Well, great to see you, Robbie. Delighted you could join us and really looking forward to today. I think it's going to be a real insight to everybody joining us today, just giving us, your journey and where you're going with, especially thinking of big game tomorrow. So we're just going to let you run with it, Robbie. Obviously, we'll just do a screen share here. You put a fantastic deck together. So if you want to just pull that up, Robbie.
Well, firstly, Eric, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure, mate. And hello to all the guys out there. I probably know quite a number of you. So I spoke to Eric over the last couple of months just about putting something on, and I decided to put a wee thing together, just bits and bobs about, some things that I've maybe found difficult to do and had some, advice on, and also how we get objectives for things, how I deal with objectives for the club. And then finally, I'll just have a quick look at part of our game model as well. So the three things I'm going to look at today are, firstly, communication. For me, that the biggest thing is that the first meeting with the players, when you first go into a dressing room and coming in as a new coach and a new manager, and it's all eyes on you, and how you can maybe try and structure that, and how you set the tone right from the start and say, this is me, this is what I want, this is what I'm looking for. So when you get a week down the line, 2 weeks, a month down the line, there's not really any grey areas. So look at the communication of the first kind of meeting you have. Second bit I'll look at is the objective setting. So, what you want to do for the season, where you want to finish, what you're looking for the players, and how I would go about that, and the process I would go through before it actually went to the players. And then the final bit I'll look at is, we'll just look at a wee bit of the game model. So we play predominantly 3-4-3. There is a system that plays 4-1-4-1. I'll look at 3-4-3 and basically just what we show the players. So this is a presentation that we'll show the players as a group, we'll show it individually, and just giving them clarity of what we're looking for in each of the different departments. So the first part is the communication. So for me, that first meeting is so important. My first meeting I was in as a coach was at East Fife, and getting up and speaking in front of the players, it's just coming out of football. It's probably one of the hardest things I've found. And to be honest, even now going into a new club, I find it's quite a difficult thing to do. You stand up there, you make one slip, the players are like they're after you. So it's how you get a wee bit of structure in that. And I've always found the best way for me is it's an opportunity to set the tone, So make sure you prepare that speech when you go in, what you're looking for, so that the players right away, they go, he knows what he wants, knows what he's talking about, no grey areas. So my initial conversation, I always speak to them and say, look, 3 things I look for in the club, and as players, coaching staff, everyone. The first one's humility. Okay, so we're all here together. Nobody's better than anybody else. Okay, whether you're a senior player with 200 appearances or a young player with no appearances, we treat each other with respect. As a coaching staff, we will treat you with respect. We expect it to come back as well. So we're all humble. We're here to work. The second part I look for is work ethic. Okay, so I expect you to work. I expect you to give everything for the club and for each other, and there's no qualms on that. Okay, so we get monitored. Work ethic is key. And then the final thing we'll look at is team first. So that basically means if there's a decision to get made when you're on the pitch, is it good for me or is it good for the team? You pick the team. It's always team first, and that's what we look at, whether it's training pitch, whether it's in the game, whether it's outside. So these 3 things are so important to us: the humility, the work ethic, and the team first. And we'll go into a wee bit more detail into that as we go along. But right away from the start, you're saying, this is what I'm looking for. So it sets the kind of tone for the club. And then the second thing I always speak to the players about, and I ask this question in front of them all, and I'll say, what is a professional football player? So it's interesting when you ask this question, because 99 times out of 100, they will say it's someone that gets paid to play football. And that's the answer that I'm looking for, because that's the one I can jump on. Okay, because for me, what is a professional football player? So we'll get into this and we'll say, talk about it for a while, but the big thing for me is, as a professional football player, you're not paid to play, and that's a mistake a lot of them make. They think professional football is all about the Saturday. Professional football is you're paid to be ready for selection. So that means that every day you're working, every day you're looking after yourself 24/7, so that you're in the best possible condition that if we as a club decide that we want to use you on a Saturday, then you're ready for us. And making sure they understand that every day in training, that's what they get paid for. They get paid to work hard. They get paid for their humility. They get paid for their work ethic. So it's important that they know that right from the start. So there's no grey areas. When you come in, you get paid for that. And if you don't give it 100% in training, you're not earning your money. So I then go and speak to them and say, look, I expect you to arrive every day ready to work. So that means when you're away from here, you're looking after yourself. Okay, you're not up to 4 o'clock in the morning with your PlayStation. You're getting sleep. You're preparing properly. When you come in every day, it's 100%. That's what I expect, and that's what you get paid for. And then a professional football player is someone who shows a good attitude and a good body language every day. And these are 3 things that we need, and that's what you earn. And that, for me, is what a professional football player is. It's not somebody on a Saturday. That's what everyone else sees. A professional football player is this. So I'll that first conversation, whenever I have it, my group is structured around the 3 traits that we look for, and then that question. And right away, the players know, we mean business. We're not here to mess about. These are the expectation levels that we want from the club. And then I'll then talk about the 3 elements of success that we need. So the cultural one is the humility, the work ethic, the team first. So culturally, we need to be like that. Physically, I expect them to be 24/7 athletes. Okay, so that means they're at it all the time. Physically, we're looking to improve their change of direction. So that's the 3 things we work on: change of direction, high speed running, and then speed, which is basically their sprint speed. So that's on pitch. Then off pitch, we'll look to improve their robustness. So that means working in the gym, getting stronger, more availability to play. So that's the physical side we'll look at. Then the tactical side of it, we'll look at the 2 shapes, 3-4-3, 4-1-4-1, understanding your role within that, and understanding the game model. So they're the things that we look at all the time. We talk about it in that first meeting. And I just think for any coach, that meeting has to be really, really well structured, because when you walk in that room and you stand up in front of them, it's got to be bang at it, because that's your moment. You only get one chance to speak to them for the first time. And that's just, you guys, whatever you want to do, but I think it gives you a little bit of a structure to it. Talk about the culture, and then ask them that question: what's a professional football player? Because it's amazing the answers you get. Very, very few of them say, it's somebody that's paid to be ready.
Robbie, what's the best answer you've had to that question?
King man for loads. usually it's silence, but 99 times out of 100, it's somebody that's paid to play football, which is what they have, and that's a great one, because it just gives you that chance. No, it's not
to jump. Yeah,
somebody to train. You always get it, and then you can go into the details within it and go, look, this is what I expect. 24/7 and all there. So that's just the way I do it. So that's the first meeting that I have with them. And then I'll then lay it out after that. I'll say, this is the training structure. Okay, so I'll always give the players 2 months in advance so they know exactly what they're doing. As a player, I hated never knowing if you're going to be in tomorrow, if you're going to be off. So there was no uncertainty about it. So I'll say to the players, this is it. I'm going to ask a lot of you. You're not going to get a lot of days off, but I will give you time, and I'll give you a chance to plan it. So you give me everything when you're here, and we work, and then you'll get your time off. Generally, what I'll try and do is I'll try and do 6-week blocks. It's a wee bit different this year when international. It's been around about 5, but we'll give them usually 6-week blocks where they work really hard, and then they'll maybe get 3 or 4 days off so they can then go and plan something. So right away, we've got the structure and we're saying, this is what I want for you, this is when I want you in. And then we'll also, every single day before we get to training, we'll have a meeting and we'll discuss what we're going to do. So this was the first day of pre-season. We'll sit down, we'll go, warm up is this long, you know, we're going to work on some technical stuff, we're going to do a wee bit of work in different groups, and then we'll look at tactical passing, and we'll do some conditioning so the players, before they even go out, they know exactly what they're doing, so they don't have any, you know, you're standing for 15, 20 minutes trying to explain things. So right away in that first meeting I've had with them, they've got the culture, they've got what they're expecting as a player, and then they've got the structure of how the training days will be and what a training session will be like. And then there's just clarity from there on in. Are there any questions on that, guys?
Oh, I think that looks excellent, Robbie. I would just crash on.
All right, perfect, thanks.
Yep.
So next part for us is setting the objectives. So we've come in, we've spoke about the, you know, what's expected of the players, what we're going to do in training, blah, blah, blah. The next thing we look at is the objective of the group and the club, and what we want to do. So first thing I'll do is, I'll sit down and I'll analyse the data, and I'll look at, for instance, as a Hearts this year, we'd like to finish in the top 2, definitely in the top 4. So I'll look at the previous 10 years and we'll look at it and see what gets you there, what points total, you know, how many points you need to get every 11 games, which is a full round of games here. And I'll have a look at it and I'll make a decision, right, this is where I think we should be. This is what I think we'll need to get to that position. Then I'll speak to my assistant coaches. We'll have a sit down and we'll go, right, you know, this is what I think. They'll put their stuff to me. They'll say, oh, maybe about this, you know. We'll then look at, you know, how we do it with regards what game model we go, what formation we go. Then from there, once I've decided and the coaches decide, I'll then go to the owner and I'll say, look, what's your expectation levels this year? What do you expect from her? You know, and she'll tell me, to be honest, this year she was great. She said, we're looking, if we can get top 8, we're happy. You know, so that for this, we get promoted last season, takes the pressure off, you know, but allows me to go, right, she's happy with top 8. And I'll say to her, well, I'm looking for top 4. You know, ideally I'm looking for top 3, but I try and keep a wee bit back for her to keep her happy at the end of it. So I'll discuss with the owner. We agree on it. Say this is where I want to go. I'll then speak to the sporting director and say, look, this is what I need now to get there. So I need, you know, this season we needed a couple of centre halves, we needed 2 midfielders, and we need a couple of attacking players. So we'll go, right, this is what I need to get there. After that, once I've decided with the sporting director, I'll then speak to the staff. So I have what I call the core staff, which is basically the guys that if I get sacked, they get sacked. So they're the core, they're the ones that are with us. They're the ones, if I move elsewhere, I would take them. If I get emptied, they would get emptied as well. There are guys that are here, are the football department staff. So they're the guys that are kind of background that help out. So I would then have a meeting with them and discuss them and say, right, this is the objectives. This is where we want to finish. We want to finish top 4, we want to try and hit these points. We want to do this. And then after that, I've got a leadership group that's put together by the captain. I've asked for like 5 players within the dressing room that he thinks, not just his friends, but guys who, you know, we have ones that, one of the guys is from the loan players. So we've got about 4 or 5 loan players. So he looks after the kind of loans. We've got one that's from the younger group. We've got one foreign guy that's got the foreign guys. And then we've got a couple of Scottish guys in there. So it's trying to cover all aspects of it. I'll sit down with them and we'll go, you know, what do you think? Where should we be finishing? And you'll get the ones that go, oh, we should be finishing first. And you get the guys that go, oh, we should be finishing, you know, as long as we don't, you know, we stay up, we're great. So we'll talk for a wee bit and I'll basically try and guide them towards what I think the objective should be. You know, eventually we'll get there just by kind of leading them. And then once we've done that and they've agreed to it, I'll then go and speak to the rest of the players as a whole group. Because I've got that leadership group on side already and they've bought into it, it's easy to get the rest of the players to buy in. You know, you got there, you've spoken to these 5, you go and you say, right lads, what do you think? Where can we finish? And right away one of them goes, top 4. You go, that's where I want to be. You know, and then you can then build it for there. So for me, it's really important to get them involved in the decision making. But what they do is they then filter out the message into the rest of the team, and it makes it so much easier for you. And then after that, we'll sit down and we'll go, right, what we're going to talk about externally. So at Hearts, we're talking about making the top 6. Internally, we want to be top 2, top 3. but externally to reduce the pressure on the players and the background noise, and even with the fans to an extent, we'll talk about top six. And that, to be honest, that's already agreed with the owner and the sporting director of what the external voice or message is to make sure that it keeps the pressure off.
Robbie, you've been coaching for about a decade now since you stopped playing. How important has it been that in your learning and managing upwards, if you know what I mean, to the people above you in clubs? How important has that become?
Most important thing for me, Kingy, to be honest with you, mate, and it was probably my biggest learning curve down when I went to MK. I had a brilliant owner at Hearts, and I went down to MK, and Pete was a really good guy, nice guy, but very, very erratic, up and down on victories, and I didn't handle him well, I didn't manage him well. You know, I've ended up, I just, to be honest, couldn't be bothered dealing with him, so we ended up not speaking towards the end of it. And once that comes, it's done and dusted. So, you know, going into the next job, it was very much like, I need to get better at managing up the way. I need to keep talking to them. I need to find what they want, you know, what they need to. Like the owner here, Anne, it's just went over to fire ownership, but previously with Anne, you know, I would speak to her. She's a wee bit more distant than Pete was, but I'll speak to her every Friday, and then I'll send her a report every Friday about what we've done in training, you know, what we're going to do next day, what the team is, all the information, just to keep her in the loop. So it's massively important to any guys out there. Like, you know, I learned the hard way, and that what happened down at MK was that because I wasn't feeding any messages to the chairman when things weren't going well, there was messages going into the chairman from elsewhere that weren't what I wanted. So trying to keep the key decision makers really tight is so important. It's like, it's probably the most, you know, you can coach all you want, you can deal with the players all you want, but if the guy who, you know, runs the club, you've not got him on side, you're only 2 or 3 defeats away from trouble, mate. So it's a massive part of it. Huge. So our objectives this year, we talk about, one is beat the Old Firm, there is one in Glasgow. So the other two. So beating the Old Firm is the key for us. If we feel as if we can go and beat them, we can go and beat anybody else. So I looked at the last 10 years and what the average points total were. So we looked at to finish second, to finish third. So average is about 75 points to finish second, which is 1.79 points per game. We work in rounds of 11 here in Scotland. We get 12 teams in the league. So that works out around about before you go into the split. So you get like a split after it where you get extra games. So it was roughly before the split, you'd be looking at about 22 points, which I'll then present this to the players and say, look, that's 7 wins, a draw, and you can beat 3 times and still finish second. So just really start to paint the picture that we say, look, you can get beat. I mean, we don't need to win every game. You can be beat, but as long as you pick up points regularly. We then speak about third place as well. You're looking at 1.68 points. Again, it's 6 wins, 1 draw, 4 defeats. And then I talk about, we've got Dundee United, Dundee, Livy, St Johnstone, St Mirren, Murrow, Ross County. We'll say, I would expect to beat them. Okay, so there's 2, 4, 6, 7 games. You've then the Aberdeen Hibs, I would expect to beat them or draw. And that means when you go and play Rangers and Celtic, you can go and have a pop and you can try and get a win at them. So it's really just, I've shown them this to say, this is where we are, this is where we want to get to. And then what we do after that is, we then look to reaffirm it every month. So at the end of every month, we'll go, right, where are we? You know, what's our points total? What we want at points per game? I can't, off the top of my head, I think we're about 1.9 something now. So we're running about third place. I can't remember exactly what it is. And then every 11 games, we'll go, right, what have we won, what have we lost, what have we drawn? And again, just the players have this, they've got a pot that they get every 11 games. It's a bonus pot that if they hit the targets that we get, that we're looking for, then they get extra money. So they have that incentive as well. But we sit down there and go, look, these are the objectives, and we just keep reaffirming them. It's a difficult one this at times, because if you're not hitting them, do you reassess them and change them? Then also, it's something that sometimes you have to have another look at it. I've done it at MK where we had the objectives at the start. We were about 3 months in and we had to reassess them again. And the difficulty you have with that is that, you know, it loses a bit of focus in the team, which can be hard. But so far, the rest we've been all right with. It's been going well. So that's how we set the objectives. Any questions on that, guys? No,
A lot of things so far, Robbie, on in the league in Scotland and how tight it is and stuff like that. Have you found this season, after you set your objectives and then you got in the league, that the quality's possibly gone up and the competitiveness has gone up in the league?
I felt that I watched. We'd won the league by, I don't know, 7 or 8 games to go. So I watched quite a lot of the end of the league, obviously, seeing where teams are, what we're thinking about them. I knew what my budget was going to be coming back in it. I knew I had some money to spend, and where we were, I felt, we've got to aim for top 3, top 4. Having watched other teams and what they were like, I felt we could have recruited the right players. So it was a wee bit of a gamble going, right, I want to go for this, but I'd have rather done that than went, right, let's just make top 8. Yeah. I think you have to try and push them. It's got to be realistic. You can't go and say, right, lads, we're going to win every single game, we're going to do this. But there was a bit of realism in it. I thought, having been in the league before and come up, it's plausible to get into 3rd or 4th position.
Yep.
So you take a chance on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it really, just on objectives. Now I'll just look at our game model. So this is basically how we look to play. It's pretty simple, over the years, when I first started out, I had a game model that had, 30 different things in it. And to be honest with you, like, I made it and I couldn't remember it. So I was like, there comes a point when you go, you just got to make it simple for them. I mean, what we do it in possession, what we do at possession. So you keep it nice and simple. And I see a lot of these game models and I'm like, I'm lost already. You get your phases, and then you get your 5 phases, and then you've got your 6 phases within the phases, and then you've got your sub phases within that. And it's, for me, keep it simple. So we basically have 2 formations that we play. So this is a presentation that I show the players at the start of the season and say, this is how we're going to play. Any players that are coming, I'll say, this is how we play. And for instance, if you're a 7, this is what I expect you to do in and out of possession. So the 2 formations we play are 3. First one's 3-4-3. So this is the predominant one we play week in, week out. And this is kind of what I'm looking for. Midfielders, energy, box to box. 2 second strikers. So they're guys that need to support the striker. And then we have a main figurehead, basically, a striker. The 4-1-4-1, we play with one defensive. So a wee bit more defensive, although we've only got 4 at the back, so the 5. We have a sitter. Then we have a box to box. And then a main striker. So I'm just going to show you the 3-4-3 because I've got the 4-1-4-1, but I'll be here all day. So I'll look at in possession, out of possession. So things we speak about to the player are, in possession, we look to control the ball as much as possible. So we're a possession-based team. We want to keep the ball. And then out of possession, we look to control the pitch. So we can try and control the middle of the pitch and try and force people wide and then back to jump on them. So in a 3-4-3, that's it. So again, we spoke about the front 5, the back 5. The wing backs, they have to stretch the game and give us the width. The 2 outside centre halves are the ones that build the game for us. So they're the players that I'm playing my left back in it, the number 3 position, and a really good right-sided one, which was key for us to allow us to build the game. And then the middle one basically just controls the game. He controls the line for us, so he's the one that squeezes the game. Basically, he just circulates the ball to, for want of a better term, the better players out there that can pass it better. And then in possession, we look to control it. So again, the 3 things that we speak about, you'll find that I talk a lot in 3 different things. It's find it easier for the players to understand that I can go, right, what's the 3 things in possession you should go? Open the game, rotate positions, break lines. So opening the game basically just means create width, create a base, create length, and then we always look to overload the central area. So we're always looking to create a box in there, some sort of square, whether it's a diamond or whether it's, whatever that is, a rhombus, is that or something? I'm not sure. We always look for that central box, okay? So opening the game is that, make it big, stretch it, create the box and overload. And then, simple as anything, all we work on is 3 rotations. That's it, both sides. And I just felt that if I can get them to make these rotations, what it does is, yes, we can play in the shape that we've got on screen just now, but if teams come and try and mark us, we can start to slide into wee different positions to cause problems. So the 3 ones we work on, the first one is rotation 1, which starts when the ball is on the far side. So as it comes across, we rotate, 8 drops in, centre back high, the wing back goes into the 10 position, and then the 7 drops in. But you'll see we're still picking up the same positions. But what we've done is we've rotated to try and move, to try and get players free. So that's the first rotation we work on. The second one we work on is when the ball's in a central position and it's more of a front three that rotate. So opposite way this time. So this time the 2 will come into the pocket, the 8 will run high, and then the 7 will go wide. And what we find with that one is that what it does is it generally frees your 7 to go 1v1. But again, as you'll see, exact same positions, just a different rotation. So it's when we have the ball in possession, players should pick up these positions. They know exactly where they are, know exactly where their teammates are, but we have a wee rotation in it. And then the final one we do is when the ball's over at one side and it can be quite compact, it's difficult to get through, we run the 8 in behind. So the midfielder will run in behind and we create more of a diamond in there. But again, we've still got the width with the 11 and the 2. We've still got the base. We've got the length from the 8 now making the running behind, and we've still got that central overload in there. So basically that's it. That's the 3 things that we look at in possession, the rotations. And then the final bit is just breaking lines. So we speak to the players about lines on the football pitch. We try and create as many lines as we can for ourselves in possession. So we have, the number 4 line, we have the 3 line and the 5. Then we have the midfield, then we have the wing backs, then we have the 10s, then we have the striker. So we try and create as many as we can. And what we try and do is we do a lot of bounce passes that we work on to try and break the opposition line. So the first one we look for is to break the striker line. Can we get one of our 5 or 3s on the ball in possession to break the striker line, which then allows us to get it there, which then draws a press out from either a midfielder or an opposition wide player. From there, we look to break the next line to get into the wing backs. So that's us broke the striker line, the midfield line. And if the position of the 7 and the 2 is right, it causes a problem for the opposition, left back, and we then look to break the final line. So it's basically, in possession, rotations to break lines. And then once we've broken these lines, next thing we work on is making sure at all times we have 4 in the box. Pretty simple, but we're talking about opposite wing back, 10 midfield striker, always in the box. And then the last final bit on it, when we go on attack, is we talk about sustaining the attack. It's our counter press position. So we create that box in the middle. So it'll be a 2 and a 2, which means when the ball goes in, it comes back out, we sustain the attack. So to be honest, that's all I work on. And I just batter it and batter it. We just talk about opening the game, those 3 rotations, breaking lines. Once it goes in, make sure we get bodies in the box and then the counter press positions. And then after that, it's up to the players to go and play. So that's the attacking side of things that we try and work on. I'll be honest, probably rotations 1 and 2, we do quite a lot. It's quite funny, rotation 2, we do loads on our right-hand side. We do rotation 1 a lot more on the left-hand side, just because some players like getting into these positions and they do it. The 3rd rotation, we do it now and again, but not as much as I'd like, because the 2 midfields we have are more sitters. They don't really like making that running behind. So we're trying to get them to do it a wee bit more. So that will probably be, the next time we're going to look at is that. But the next thing for the January, we have a wee break in January, is going to be punching our centre half into midfield. So that'll be the next step for us once we get into the game mode. And we'll probably take a rotation out and bring that in, just to kind of freshen it up a bit. So 3-4-3 now, out of possession, controlling the pitch. Okay, so that one of the issues that we've found with the 3-4-3 is that at times, because you only get 2 set midfielders, you can get overloaded in the middle if you play against a 3. So what we try and do is we stay compact. So again, 3 things: stay compact as a unit, we force it wide, and then we press to contact. So that basically just means make contact with people. A pet hate is when you go and press people and stay 3 yards away from them and they pop it. So again, it's the 3 things we talk about all the time out of possession. First one, being compact in that 3-4-3. We have a training pitch, we have it marked out, we have a 30 by 40 metre box that we work in. So we try and get into that shape and we'll defend that central area. The front 3's job is to try and trigger it to get after the centre half, to force it wide. And the decision will be who presses on the opposition fullback. And that's all dependent on where he's positioned within the pitch. So 2 different areas. If he sits deep, the 10 goes. If he's high, the 11 will go, and we'll have a look at that now. So front three, no central passes. So we do not want the ball going through at the opposition number 6, because that's the pass that kills us. If they're playing a 1 and a 2 in midfield, our 6 and our 8 will be taking care of, or be marking their higher midfield players. The number 6 in opposition kills us if we don't get close to him, we don't block the pass. So the job of this front three is to block that. The job of the or the central 4 is no passes through that midfield line as well, so nothing gets zipped through. Striker's jobs, he triggers the press, the central one. So when he's ready to jump, he jumps out after a centre back, and that'll be, if he's close enough to get there, long ball behind him, back pass, whatever it is, and then slide as a unit, block the 6. Once it goes wide, so the first one we'll look at is when the opposition fullback is deep. So we're narrow to force wide, it goes to him, the 10 jumps out. So the 10 jumps, the back 5, so the 11 jumps up, and it then becomes like a 4-3-3 almost, with an opposite wing back dropping in. And the job here is make contact, try and force them down the line. That's what we want. Okay, so we want to force them into an area where we've got our 11, the 3, and the 4, and the 6 covered. If we can't and he jumps out, this is a big thing for us. Any pass that goes back, we jump on it. So we talk about the jump press with the striker. So every time that ball goes back, full back to set half, that's a trigger for us to jump on it and get after the ball. And then the other difference in it, if the opposition fullback is higher, so again, exactly the same. Striker triggers the press, it goes across, we're blocking the 6 again, we're sliding as a unit. When it goes wide, this time we're still narrow to force wide, so we don't want 8 going through. This time it's the 11 that jumps out, so that's the wing back. Again, he forces out to try and force down the line if we can. Again, if he jumps back, we get a jump press to contact. And that's basically it. For me, it's consistency of message. So when you have, like I've done myself, I've had these game models that I've had, phases after phases. I felt, from my experience, there was no consistency in it. I like to be able to say to the players, right, what we're doing in possession, what we're doing out of possession, and they can tell me. And then also what it gives you is that clarity on the pitch. We'll go out and honestly, we will just batter the rotations. We'll do it 3-4 times a week. It might only be 10 minutes, but we're just doing it. Did it again the day we're doing it. So the players know this is what we're trying to do. We'll do rotations, we'll do breaking lines, and then defensively we'll get into that block, we're compact, we'll force them wide, we'll press to contact. And what it does, what I feel, there's no excuses. You can then review the game after it and go, what are you doing here? That's what I want you to do. Why are you not doing it?
Robbie, when you were a younger coach, did you fall into the trap of trying to give them kind of novel training sessions, more different training sessions every day rather than repetitions? Because I remember going in and been lucky enough to go in and see Walter at work at Rangers, and he literally had 24 sessions for the year. That was it for the entire year, and that was how that team was working, because a lot of the days they were playing twice a week, recovery days, stuff like that. Did you, like when you were younger at the start of your coaching career, like starting to be up late at night thinking I've got to do this, give them a different session, don't repeat a session, stuff like that? Is that something that you think a trap that coaches can fall into?
100%, Kenyon. And I tell you what, again, my experience of going down to MK, so when I was at Hearts, that's exactly what I did. I had my game model previously when I was at Hearts, about 8 years ago, whatever. Had my game model, I go every day, it was something different. And then I went down to MK, and down there we were playing Saturday, Tuesday. So you never trained. And I was going and I'm like, right, the day we're going to do this new possession drill, then we're going to do this, then we're going to play against, we're playing against like Portsmouth, right? They're playing 4-1-4-1. We're going to alter and we're going to play this formation. We're going to try and do this. And then 2 days later, we're playing against Blackburn, and they're playing something else. We're going to change. And what I found was that, see, when it came to the game, I didn't know what we were doing. Never mind the players. Because I didn't have that clarity of, right, this is what we do. And there will be wee tweaks within it. We'll play against a certain team, we'll say, right, this is the one we force it to. This is maybe where we need to block. In possession, we need to do this, maybe a wee bit more. But 100% clarity is what I've found anyway is the key. So you can just go, this is what we're doing. This is what we're going to work on. So there's no excuses at all. And it's probably one of the biggest learning curves I got was that keep that message consistent, clarity of it, so they know exactly what they're doing, and just take away any excuses, so they know exactly what they need to do. So, and this is what we work on. You know, for us again, it goes back to, for me, humility, work ethic, team first, and I just try and keep, you know, as a person and a coach, I try and be humble with the players and show humility. I try and work as hard as I can. You know, I try and be, you know, not as much as I used to be. I'm always the first in. I'm not always the last away now. Sometimes, but I think that you need your energy as well. That you have to be, when you get out on a half on the pitch, you have to be bang at it with players. So the work ethic's got to be there. And then finally, it's got to be team first. You know, I had a conversation with one of our players today about I'm not playing tomorrow, and I said to him, you know, it's about the team. You know, we have to think about the team. The team comes first. It's not about, you know, you want to play or my decision at this. It's about the team. So I think always going back to those three things is key for me as a coach. And that's it. Thank you. So if there's any questions, please fire away. I'm more than happy to answer them if I can.
We've got a load of questions here, Robbie, and what I'm going to do is just they're all piling into the box here. And maybe I'll just fire it out to everybody to ask the question. Robbie, that was absolutely brilliant. Johnny Burns, do you want to ask your first question there, Johnny?
Yeah, Robbie, apologies if I'm coming across unclear. I'm in the car here, but one of the things that I thought was interesting was your kind of, you know, the structure you've got of your kind of club calendar and your daily routine and how it's mapped out. And I was just wondering how much that's developed through your managerial career and how much you maybe have to fight that instinct of reaction to maybe a bad game or a bad session.
Aye, it's something that I'll be honest with you, I've been doing it now 8 years, never changed the calendar. I used to hate it as a player, hated it when, you know, I always remember it, we had a winter break years and years, we're starting to do it again here, but it must be 2002 maybe, with the winter break. All the boys said, team was going well, great. Played Aberdeen away, up there, get beat 2-0. We're meant to have 10 days off. I'd booked to go away on holiday with the missus and the kids. And the manager came in after the game, went, I want these in tomorrow. And I swear to God, the whole place fell apart after that, at the end of the season, because boys were like just, they were raging, but the whole trust in the manager went, you know, they'd arranged all these things. So for me, I don't think you can be reactionary. You know, I think that's your plan. I always believe that, see what you did 6 weeks ago, that's what you're getting just now. So, you know, what I do today is I'm not going to get the benefits of it until 6 weeks' time, whether that be tactically, whether it be training-wise. So you have to go and say, I believe anyway. I think this is the best schedule and the best training program to get us where we want to get to. And yes, we'll lose games, but that was a big thing for me when the manager did that. I was raging, and it killed the dressing room. So I've always tried to be consistent in what I do.
Brilliant, Robbie. Next one I have is a former Tynecastle legend here, Mr. Colin Miller. Good morning, Colin.
Good morning, guys. Morning, Robbie.
Hi, Colin.
Excellent presentation, pal. Really enjoyed it. A couple of questions, Robbie. Please pass on my regards, first of all, to Gordon Forrest. I know him from his time at the Whitecaps.
I will do.
Out here in Vancouver. But you touched on it earlier on, Robbie. How important is your staff, and how much responsibility do you give them during training sessions?
Firstly, they're very, very important to me. The two guys I've got in have been great. Like I didn't know Gordon or Lee when I brought them in, so I had Stevie Crawford at Hearts, a guy called John Hill as well. Went down to MK, get sacked for MK, came back up, and I thought I need to try and get a bit of freshness in. You know, I thought good coaches, but I just felt it didn't work the MK. So sometimes you need something different, a different voice, different ideas. So I was actually interviewing somebody else, and an agent guy had said, speak to Gordon. So went along, met Gordon, and after about 2 minutes, I was actually interviewing him to come and take the job because he'd agreed to go to SFA. So Gordon came in, it was great. And then Lee McCulloch's name came up, actually sporting director Tony at Dundee United say, look, get him in, you know. So Lee came in as a striker coach just for a couple of days a week because I didn't know Lee. He'd been a manager before, and I was like, I'm not sure. I'll wait and see. Came in, he was great, and so I've actually brought him in full time. But what the two of them do, which is really good, like Colin, you'll know Gordy. Gordy's very, let's say, studious on the setup of training. You know, if you let Gordy take all training, there were about 3 million cones outside and then 200 mannequins. You know, whereas Lee, Kenny was talking us a bit more in the Walter Smith mould, where he goes, right, this is what the players want, and I think there's the balance between the two. You know, I think if you asked any coach, they would want to do tactics all day. You know, they'd want to do formations, phases, tactics. If you ask the players, they just want to come out and do warm-up boxes, games. So there's got to be a balance between the two. You know, you've got to give them what you want, but also they've got to get what they want. So I think having two coaches that balance off each other is really good, because what it's allowed me to do is that I can step back a wee bit. You know, we've got an international break next week. I'm going to take 2 days off. If you'd asked me that 4 years ago, I would never, ever, ever even thought about it. Because I've got these two good coaches, I feel comfortable letting them, but also that I have to let them do it. You know, I have to give them time. You know, there'll be days when, you know, Gordon does the rotations. So Gordon's job, he does a high performance group for us as well. But when we're doing those rotations that we do in possession, I let Gordy do it. So Gordy will run that. I'll help out. I'll be in the background, and then Lee does the set plays. So Lee's got he does all the set plays, attacking wise, defensively. So I try and give them. I think you have to, because they're really good coaches and they want to coach. So it's a difficult one. I found it quite hard over the last probably couple of years to give a lot up, because I've always just done everything. But one, I think it makes me better, but also it keeps these coaches with me as well, because they need to coach. So yeah, for me, getting the right coaching staff in and the balance there, and giving them, you know, the freedom to go and coach, giving them their ideas, giving them a time on the pitch is really important as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Robbie. Next one I have is for Richard Foy. Good morning, Richard.
Mate. Morning, Robbie. Thanks for joining us. That was really informative.
Pleasure, mate. Thanks.
Just wondering what kind of characteristics or key characteristics you look for in your players' like leadership group, and what kind of qualities you would look for the people that are going to lead that.
But we're looking for humility, work ethic, team first as our values. You know, I'm very lucky here. I've got Craig Gordon as a captain, you know, so I'll speak to Craig quite regularly. He'll come in, have a sit down, have a chat about how the dressing room is. I asked him to put together a group, but I asked him to, you know, make sure that we cover all the groups, you know, and to be honest, Craig is an experienced player. He understands that, you know. Your worry is if you ask somebody and they go, right, I'll just get my 4 mates in here, you know, as a leadership group, and you don't know what the lone players or the foreign players are wanting. So he's picked there are 4 guys, and, you know, I say we've also got a young one in, you know, so we've got a young one that we think is going to, you know, will benefit from being in that group. He's not a voice in it really, but he'll lead those younger ones, you know, so we're looking at that as well. And for me, just always going back to that humility, you know, work ethic, team first. As long as they do that, then, you know, they can have good performances and bad performances. I'm honest, the guys that are in the group, Craig is one of the best players. The other one's John Suter. The other ones that are in it aren't the best players, but they're probably the better characters within their own wee groups, you know. It's like, and you know, you'll have it in your dressing room, you have, you know, you say you don't have cliques, but we all have cliques. You know, there's wee groups of them. As long as they interact together, it's fine. But we'll have, like, you know, we have the young lone ones and a couple of younger ones that are together. We've got a couple of foreign ones that are together. We've got the Scottish boys that are together. We've got the young ones together. So we'd have all these wee groups, and it's important to get the ones from each group that I know when they go back in are going to filter that message that we're trying to get across to the group properly.
Brilliant. Thanks, Robbie. Next one is Ewan. Ewan, are you still there?
I am. Yeah, sorry, Robbie. I'm driving right now, but big Hearts fan, and really enjoyed the presentation this morning. I just wanted to ask about how you decided upon those shapes and those systems. Was it something you wanted to play last year but didn't have the personnel, or did you want to, or was it something you came to during pre-season this year?
Well, last season we played in the Championship, and I've been in the Championship a few times and thankfully managed to win it. But the Championship is totally different from playing in the top flight, and at times, to be honest, it can be harder because the games are very erratic. You're playing against. I would go and watch teams, right, and I'd watch, I don't know, Queen of the South against Inverness. Two teams would be open, attack, defend, attack, defence. They would then come to Hearts and they just camp in, and it's a total different game. So you're basically, last season, you try to create 1v1s. You're trying to go just get my good players against their bad players. So we would play 4-4-2 quite a bit, two wingers, a winger against a fullback, try and create 1v1s. Whereas moving up to the top flight, it's a different ball game. You're then looking at, rotations, overloads in certain areas. So we were lucky enough that we won the league with about 6 or 8 games to go. So I'd already had in my head that going up to the top flight with the players that we were retaining, I wanted to play 3-4-3. And then I had John Suter, who plays right centre half of a 3. Craig Halkett, who plays the middle, who Craig needs to play in a 3. And then I moved Stephen Kingsley into the left centre half of a 3. So that's 3 players that give you a really good base. And then I had Michael Smith, who's probably better at wing back. So that then meant I had to recruit a left wing back, 2 centre midfielders. I had a couple of 10s. I needed 2 more. And then I had Boyce and Angeli. So I was covered in these areas, and I just felt that 3-4-3 suited the players that I had already there. But also, it allowed us to then go, right, this is what we need in a fullback, or a wing back, sorry. This is what we need in a number 6. So it just gave a bit of clarity. And having spoken to the sporting director about it, we felt that, you can come up and you can play 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1, just bang it, and then hope you win games. But we wanted to try and create something here that we go, this is how we play. This is how Hearts play. So the youngsters play it, the under 18s, the resis when they play it. And I'm hoping that it will just bring a kind of brand of football to the club.
Brilliant. Thanks, Robbie. Troy McCarroll. Troy, good morning. How you doing?
Morning. Thanks for your time, Robbie. It's been brilliant.
No problem, Troy.
My question is, do you ever record your training sessions and build a training session catalogue for future use or to refer back to?
Yeah, mate, 100%. It gets videoed every day. So then the players we've got an analyst, the boy Angus Beath, who used to play at Hearts. So Angus is a young player, got a bad injury, he came in. So Angus will video it and then he'll cut it down. So basically, you'll go for a 60-minute session down to probably 25 minutes when your actual content within it, once you get rid of all the warm-up and all the nonsense. We'll review it every day. So we have a meeting every day. We'll then cut it and it'll go up on a thing called Huddle. So Huddle's like an online platform that we put videos up on. So Angus will then coach paint it before it goes out. So I don't know if you know, coach paint is like basically you can put wee circles on things, you can draw and you can look at the movements. So we'll put that up for the players. We do that, and then I also have a bank. So, for instance, if we did the rotations today and we're going to do it again next week, I'll show them it. So we have a drone and then we coach paint it and we show them it in training. So I have a bank of it, the 3 different rotations we do, four in the box, the counter press positions. So if we're reviewing a game, we'll maybe show, we're playing Dundee United tomorrow, we might show some of the rotations for the last game that we played against them. And then we'll maybe show some of the training as well when we're doing the video. So we have that wee bank that we can put together. So I think it's really important because, you can stand and talk on a tactics board all you want, but a lot of boys need to see it. They need to see the video. They need to see the movements to really pick it up. So yes, I would advise Andy, if you've got the facilities to do it, then definitely do it because it helps when you show them it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Robbie. Next question I've got myself is, one thing that's been very obvious this year, Robbie, is your recruitment has been fantastic. I think that's been obvious to everybody. How well has it gone with your new sporting director, and how good is your synergy with him, Robbie? And how much you rely on each other?
Well, it's been really good, to be honest with you. So it's a different one from what it usually is. So I came in first, and then we then recruited the sporting director. So having known the owner from before, Anne and the chief exec, we spoke and went through like who did we feel that I could work with. You know, so there was a few that I didn't feel the right ones, and then spoke to Joe, got a good feeling for him, and had good experience from doing in England, which I thought was important because that's the kind of market that we look at. You know, we realistically we don't really sign guys for Scotland because the good ones cost too much. So he had a lot of experience in that. So we decided to bring him in, and then for me, and Joe, it's just building that relationship. You know, and what will happen is that, you know, once I leave, whether I move up or move down, whatever it'll be, Joe will then pick the next manager that comes in, and then it becomes more of a kind of, you know, the way it normally is at a club. So at the moment, both of us answer into the chief exec and the owner, you know, so it works quite well. Joe had a lot of contacts down in England, having been down there at Preston and Norwich. So he brought in a new head of recruitment. So we've got a guy, Will, who's actually based in England. So he's based down in Southampton and does all the games down about the London South Coast area. And then we also brought in a recruitment analyst who's been really good. He actually found my boy Cammy Devlin, which is an Australian player. So I have a kind of KPIs that I have that I'm looking for players. So each position I'll say, you know, centre midfielder, we'll look for like plus 12k. We'll look for like tackles won. There's like a list of about 4 or 5 different things, like the technical and physical stuff. So got George Brown, the guy's name is, he's got that. He'll then try and source players through that. So he sourced young Cammy Devlin. He was playing out in the A-League at Wellington Phoenix. And it was one where, like, not really sure about standards, you know, is he going to come, is he going to do it? But we decided to take the plunge on it, and it's worked really well. He's been great. So we have, let's say, we've got people watching games, but we've also got this guy who just like basically just looks at the data all the time. You know what I mean? Just like he flag things up, which is great. And then it'll come into me and we'll make a decision about whether we bring him in or not.
And
So
I think just to carry on for there, Robbie, is you look back to your time, you know, think of your, as Kingy mentioned, the number of years you've been coaching now, and you look back at your time at MK Dons. Do you reflect back to that quite often, you know, on lessons learned and growth opportunities and you know, carry that through to where you are today?
100%, to be honest. Eric's probably, you know, at the time it's very, very hard when you get sacked. Like, it's like you know, back to the back of the head. But having looked back, it's probably the best thing that happened to me. You know, I went down to England and probably wasn't ready yet, to be honest with you. You know, I did, you know, I was coached a wee bit at Falkirk, went to East Fife, went back to Hearts at the academy, moved up to first team, did about 2.5 years there, and then went down to England. And I wasn't ready. In hindsight, wasn't ready for it. Went down there, even just like culturally dealing with the players, it was a different breed down there. You know, when I had dealt with players up in Scotland that had come through the Hearts Academy, so they were like me. You know, they were, you know, Scottish guys, same type of person. I went down there, MK, we were dealing with I was dealing with a lot of like young boys that were single parents, you know, mother looking after them, living in housing estates, like, you know, tough upbringing. I remember speaking to the youth coach and he was saying that a lot of them have never actually like had any talking face to face, honest conversation with adult men before. It's always just been their mum, and like they just, you know, they tell their mum what to do and they disappear. So it's like that was a big learning curve for me, you know, like dealing with these guys and, you know, try to understand, get a feeling for them and them get a feeling for me, and, you know, understand what they were doing, what they were wanting. So that was a massive learning curve for me. So I look back at my time at MK, and although at the time it was like really tough coming out and getting emptied, and you're like, you know, what do I do? Where do I go? In hindsight, the things I learned from it were brilliant. And I remember, if you know Alex Smith, old Alec is, I've been very lucky with Alec in that, you know, I've known Alec for God since I was Scotland 21, so 20 odd years. Still speak to him regularly. He's actually emigrated out to Australia now, Alec. I'll speak to him maybe once a fortnight, but I remember Alec, and probably a lot of people said that until you've been sacked, you're not really you're not a real manager, because you don't really understand the hit that comes, and then the reflection of what's happened, and then, you know, how you put that into action in the next place. So it was 100% true. what he said. And I wouldn't advise people to go and get sacked, but if it happens, think of the benefits of it once you get back in again.
And I think for me as well, Robbie, and we've got another couple of questions here. Something that's always impressed me about you, and even meeting you and being around you, is you're a lifelong learner, and you're always trying to, learn and educate yourself. And we talked about it just before we came online here about doing your master's course. What has that been for you, and how has that helped your journey? And has that been, obviously it's a workload, but I'm sure that's been, broadened your horizons a little bit as well, Robbie.
Yeah, look, 100%. I'm always trying to pick different things up. Even just coming here today to speak to you guys, I think it's great because you get asked questions that makes you think. I sat for a couple of hours putting the presentation together. It makes me start thinking about things, and what I need to do next. So I think it's really important that as a coach you do that. But also I think your players need to see that you want to learn and want to improve. So that you're asking them to come in and learn and improve every day. So you have to do it as well. So I think that side of it's important. The master's degree I'm doing, that we spoke earlier on about it, there's 2 master's degrees that in sporting directorship you can do in England, and I went to look at both of them, and one of them was like loads of football players and football coaches on it. It was basically like kind of almost a glorified pro license.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really want to go and just talk about football again, and same old and same conversations. So another one was more, we've got rugby, cricket, hockey, we've got people for business in it. And I thought, you're going to get a wee bit, different ideas, go out your comfort zone a wee bit. And to be honest, it's been great. Just like the rugby guys, I think are great. I love going to see the rugby guys train. We're lucky. We've got the SRU based here, and I know Gregor pretty well, so I'll go and watch them. And again, like, honestly, man, they're light years ahead of us. Years ahead of us with regards like the team spirit and guys taking responsibility for themselves and their teammates on the pitch. And it's like, I'm always saying, how do we get that into football? But I do think you might get some of it, but it's 2 different sports, and I could talk about this all day, to be honest. But that's a much more physical sport. If you're not with a team, you can get seriously injured, whereas football is a bit more, although it's a team sport, it's more individual. Having spoken to the rugby guys, they're seeing it coming into their sport a bit more as it becomes less physical and more money orientated as well, where the guys are getting big moves. So we're starting to come together, and they're not, as team orientated as it used to be. So it's interesting, really interesting. But again, I just like going and speak to them, and no talking about like, did you watch his fight against Cow and Beef last night?
Yeah. And I think just to finish here, unless we've got any other questions, Robbie, is last one is, our group here, just looking at who's on, we have predominantly, I'm just looking, for want of another definition, we've got a lot of millennials here who are still in their 20s and early 30s, just starting out their journey. And then we've got some old bastards like Colin Miller. But if you were to look back, Robbie, and you were just to try and give some advice to the millennials that are just getting started in the early stages of their journey, what words of advice would you give them, Robbie?
It's a tough one. What would I say? Just like we spoke about there, keep learning, keep trying different things. I'm big on, like, I do some stuff for SFA, we do like the B&A license, and what I'll say to them is that, I see a lot of the guys that just copy everyone else. I mean, they see a drill, they'll just copy it, and or they want to be like the next, Mourinho or Klopp or Guardiola and all that. And I'll say to them, like, just be yourself, be you, because that's what you are, and you're my idea of football isn't right. It's what I think I like, but Eric, yours will be different, King, yours will be different, Rich's will be different. Do what you think's right, don't copy other people. And because I think if there's some really good coaches on this, and they might be the next top coach, but if you're trying to copy somebody else, you're not going to be it. So just learn, pick things up, try it. If it's not right, nobody cares, man. Honestly, again, I'll say to the players sometimes, honestly, I've been out the pitch and I've thought of this drill, what I'm going to do, and I'm like, right, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, right? And I'll go 5 minutes in, I'm like, this is terrible, man. So I'll like pull the boys in and go, look, lads, it was shit. Go and get a warm up, we're going to do something else. but at least you're trying it, and they'll accept that. You know, they'll accept that you're trying things. You know, because you want to get better and you want to challenge them a wee bit. So I'd say just be yourself, man. Don't try and copy someone else.
Absolutely brilliant, Robbie. Can't thank you enough. And you know, this has been such an insight for everybody, and just the amount of questions and feedback has just been phenomenal. So from Kingy and Johnny Burns and myself, you know, we can't thank you enough, Robbie, and just wish you all the best for tomorrow. I know you're looking forward to tomorrow. It's a huge game, isn't it?
It's a big one for us, so we'll get a chance. Whoever wins that tomorrow goes second for 24 hours anyway. So look, Eric, Kingy, thanks for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure. Enjoyed it. And if any of you guys are coming over to Scotland and want to come and watch a bit of training, just get in contact with Eric or Kingy, and more than welcome to come in, lads, and have a look at the rotations.
Brilliant catch up.
Absolutely brilliant. Thanks again, Robbie. Good luck tomorrow, mate.
Cheers, lads. Take care.
All the best.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate.